Peter FitzSimons, former Wallaby, journalist, writer, 120 joins us. He is the Lord Raconteur of all things Australian rugby, and right now needs a cuddle. Come here, mate. Come on. Come close and come close.
I'm not in the mood. I'm not in the mood, okay? Keep your hands to yourself.
What a brilliant piece that I read in the Sydney Morning Herald. Now, I can't say that it was written by you, but I suspect that Peter FitzSimons is the same guy. It took the most gutting defeat in Wallabies history to realise I was wrong about Eddie. I don't know which was more absolutely outrageous, the Wallabies' performance, Eddie Jones going for a job interview beforehand, or the fact that you have admitted you're wrong.
Well, I wasn't the only one, I'll tell you what. I mean, how many people... Martin Devlin, did you say we were wrong to get rid of Dave Rennie and bring in Eddie Jones? I mean, for me, at the time, it was a no-brainer. We're going into a World Cup year. Dave Rennie was the coach of a talented, if slightly underperforming team, the messiah of world rugby, who's got a track record second to no one over 20 years at World Cups, coaching Australia to a World Cup final in 2003, assistant coaching Box to victory in 2007, coaching Japan to beat South Africa in 2015, coaching England to smash the All Blacks in the semi-final in 2019 and take them to the final. A guy with that track record becomes available. He's Australian, and his whole track record is to get teams to perform better than they ever have in the short term. Did you say at the time this was madness? Because I can't remember anybody saying it.
What I did point gently out, which you conveniently ignored, was all of that. I would argue that Steve Hansen being assistant coach in 2011, a victory in 2015, and then a semi-final in 2019 might balance up that Eddie side of the ledger. But what I did tell you was that Eddie is really good at self-promotion and at disruption. He comes along, he does a little job for a couple of years, and then it all burns to hell. And he's done this time after time after time again, and we were all expecting it to happen perhaps in 2 or 3 years as opposed to today. That's the only difference.
That's the truth. Yeah, but you're underselling him. He's got, he coached the Brumbies to win the Super Rugby in, 2001. He's a seriously accomplished coach. And, I absolutely agree that the track record is to get brilliant performances for 2 or 3 years and then they burn out. The classic example of which was, England didn't make the 2015, I don't think they got out of group stage, like us.
Yeah.
That's right. And so in the space of 4 years, Eddie took them. I think they won their first 18 tests straight. Now, this is not somebody that doesn't know how to coach. This is somebody that coaches brutally but brilliantly. That's his track record, brutal, brilliant coaching. And so nobody could see coming that when all these things were happening over this last 6 months, where you've got five captains in 6 matches, where you've got, legends of the game being wiped out, when you've got whole swathes of senior players being left behind while Eddie takes the most junior team in the whole World Cup to France. All of those things were troubling. You go, well, that seems very odd to me, but it doesn't, Eddie surely knows what he's doing. And then you go, no, it's actually not working. And for me, quite seriously, emblematic of the whole thing, I went to, just before the World Cup started, I went to see the Wallabies train on the edge of Paris.
Yes, you did.
And I was stunned. It was my first Wallaby training in 20 years. And they coached. There was 30 guys out there on the pitch. There were 2 drones in the sky filming the whole thing. There were 3 guys on computers behind desks at the end, in the end goal, tabulating the whole thing. There would have been a support person or coach for every Wallaby on the field. I mean, you were 30 Wallabies and there had to have been at least as many coaches and support staff. So it was a multi-million-dollar operation with drones in the sky, and yet come the game against Fiji, the ball goes up twice, Nobody shouts out mine. And in the first one, Fiji scores. So I don't understand when you've got that level of sophistication that can tell you that Martin Devlin's pulse rate's been an average of 106.75. He's done 9,374 steps, and his blood glycerin, is up that shows he's tired and he needs to rest and blah, 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 blah. You've got that level of sophistication, and yet the basics, the bare basics of shouting out mine are left behind. And then against Fiji with a minute to go and Australia with one chance of holding the Fijians to a draw was to hold onto the ball. We just kept kicking it downfield. I don't understand how a team under the guidance of Eddie Jones, the most accomplished coach in the last 20 years, just, has ignored the basics.
All right, okay. Well, okay. What are you more upset about? Are you more upset about the fact that you have crashed out? I've got a couple of questions here. And where you've crashed out and you're going to come home before getting out of the group stage, which is the worst World Cup for a Wallaby side ever. Let's just add to that if the All Blacks go out in the quarterfinal, they'll come home as the worst All Black side ever to go to a World Cup as well, because we've lost a pool match, okay? And we're not necessarily a bad side. But Peter, are you more upset about the form and the results, or the fact that he did a dirty and while he was dating you, he had a Tinder date with Japan? Because that to me is what everyone seems to be focusing on, and that's something that Eddie Jones owes the public of Australia, Wallaby rugby fans, and even his bosses an honest answer.
I agree with that your latter point. Now, a few people have said on social media, there are a few defenders of Eddie on social media, and they have said, look, it's not, if you, while working for the platform, let's just say, did an interview with News Talk ZB about going to them, that's sort of a bit understandable. That's the media world. That's the way it happens. But it's different in sport. If you are saying in the dressing room to guys, I want you to commit to this jersey, to bleed for this jersey. You're representing your country. And sorry, guys, I've just got to take a call. I've just got Japan on the other line. It does not work.
You're right.
You cannot do that.
Yeah, you're right.
And I must say, Eddie sort of denied, saying, I don't know what you're talking about, mate. He sort of denied it, but it was very careful language that he used. And I can tell you, at the Herald, Sydney Morning Herald, we don't go to press on a story like that unless we've got it tied down every which way. Of course that story's true. And so, the question that needs to be put to Eddie, and I wasn't at the press conference, but the question that I would have put to Eddie at the press conference is, Eddie, you're sort of denying this, but let me ask you this. Would you agree that a national coach doing on a 5-year contract, not even up to 1 year on a 5-year contract, doing an interview for another nation a week before a World Cup, do you agree that if that were to prove to be true is firstly outrageous, and secondly, do you think it's a dismissible offence? What do you think? You're denying it happened, but let's just say, for argument's sake, it's true of another. What do you think of that? And I'd be fascinated to know his answer.
Oh, you know what he does. He just turn it around on its head and you just poke the borax at you, mate. One more question before you go then. All right, here it is. We've got this angst going on amongst certain members of those that comment on these things in New Zealand about how we shouldn't be basking in the fact that you've lost, and we should be cuddling and hugging you because it's so important that Australian rugby's strong. My counter argument to that is, how about we look in our own backyard? Because New Zealand rugby's in a shambles at the moment. We've just had a review which says the whole organisation is not fit for purpose. We've got an average All Black side at a World Cup. I think we actually need to take care of business here in New Zealand before we start worrying about what you guys are up to.
I wish the All Blacks well. That's our only solace. We're struggling, but so are you. But your struggles are as nothing to ours. I'm just writing a piece for the Herald for tomorrow, where to from here. And the first thing we've got to work out is, how do we survive? Survival is a big thing because, is the next TV contract going to be renewed? A sponsor's going to stay on board? How do we get enough credibility to go up against the British and Irish Lions next year? How do we work our way through? We're hosting the World Cup in 2027. We need to be a credible force in that. So we've got a lot of questions to answer, and we don't have the answers to that yet. I think for me, it starts with saying to Eddie, look, if you'd like to go to Japan, can we take you to the airport?